Hi guys, welcome. Today we're going to be reading chapters 5 and 6 from Uglies. Before we get to that, let's figure out what our riddle of the day was yesterday. The riddle was, what can travel around the world while staying in one corner? The answer was a stamp. Today's riddle is, David's father has 3 sons. Snap, crackle, and... I'll let you know the answer to that tomorrow. All right, getting back to our story. We're starting with chapter 5. It's called Facing the Future. Here's option 2. Tally touched her interface ring and the wall screen changed. This Tally was sleek, with ultra-high cheekbones, deep green cat-like eyes, and a wide mouth that curled into a knowing smile. That's, pretty different. Yeah, I doubt it's even legal. Tally tweaked the eye-shaped parameters, pulling the arch of the eyebrows down to almost normal. Some cities allowed exotic operations for new pretties only, but the authorities here were notoriously conservative. She doubted the doctor would give this Morpho a second glance, but it was fun to push the software to its limits. You think I look too scary? No, you look like a real pussycat. Shay giggled. Unfortunately, I mean that in the literal dead mouse-eating sense. Okay, moving right along. The next Tally was a much more standard morphological model, with almond-shaped brown eyes, straight black hair with long bangs, and dark lips set to maximum fullness. Pretty generic, Tally. Oh, come on! I worked on this one for a long time. I think I'd look great this way. There's a whole Cleopatra thing going on. You know, Shay said, I read that the real Cleopatra wasn't even that great looking. She seduced everyone with how clever she was. Yeah, right. And you've seen a picture of her? They didn't have cameras back then, Squint. Duh, so how do you know she was ugly? Because that's what historians wrote at the time. Callie shrugged. She was probably a classic pretty, and they didn't even know it. Back then they had weird ideas about beauty. They didn't know about biology. Lucky them. Shay stared out the window. So if you think all my faces are so crappy, why don't you show me some of yours? Callie cleared the wall screen and leaned back on the bed. I can't. You can dish it out, but you can't take it, huh? No, I mean, I just can't. I never made one. Tallie's jaw dropped. Everyone made Morphos, even littlies. Too young for their facial structure to have set. It was a great waste of a day figuring out all the different ways you could look when you finally become pretty. Not even one? Maybe when I was little, but my friends and I stopped doing that kind of stuff a long time ago. Well, Tally sat up. We should fix that right now. I'd rather go hoverboarding. Shay tugged anxiously under her shirt. Tally figured that Shay slept with her belly sensor on, hoverboarding in her dreams. Later, Shay. I can't believe you don't have a single morph. Please? It's stupid. The doctors pretty much do what they want no matter what you tell them. I know, but it's fun. Shay made a big point of rolling her eyes, but finally nodded. She dragged herself off the bed and plopped down in front of the wall screen, pulling her hair back from her face. Tally snorted. So you have done this before. Like I said, when I was a littlie. Sure. Tally turned her interface ring to bring up the menu on the wall screen, and blinked her way through a set of iMouse choices. The screen's camera flickered with the laser light. A green grid sprang up on Shay's face, a field of tiny squares, imposing across the shape of her cheekbones, nose, lips, and forehead. Seconds later, 2 faces appeared on the screen. Both of them were Shay, but there were obvious differences. One looked wild, slightly angry, and the other had a slightly distant expression, like someone having a daydream. It's weird how this works, isn't it? Tally said. Like 2 different people? Shay nodded. Creepy. Ugly faces were always asymmetrical. Neither half looked exactly like the other. So the first thing the Morpho software did was take each side of your face and double it, like holding a mirror right down the middle, creating 2 examples of perfect symmetry. Already both of the symmetrical Shays looked much better than the original. So, Shay, which do you think is your good side? Why do I have to be symmetrical? I'd rather have a face with 2 different sides. Hallie groaned. That's a sign of childhood stress. No one wants to look at that. Gee, I wouldn't want to look stressed. Shay snorted and pointed to the wilder looking face. Okay, whatever. The right one's better, don't you think? I hate my right side. I always start with the left. Yeah, well, I happen to like my right side. Looks tougher. Okay, you're the boss. Tally blinked and the right side face filled the screen. First, the basics. The software took over. The eyes gradually grew, reducing the size of the nose between them. Shay's cheekbones moved upwards, and her lips became a tiny bit fuller. They were already almost pretty sized. Every blemish disappeared, her skin turning flawlessly smooth. The skull moved subtly under the features, the angle of her forehead tilting back, her chin becoming more defined, her jaw stronger. When it was done, Tally whistled. Wow, that's pretty good already. Great, Shay groaned. I totally look like every other new pretty in the world. Well, sure, we just got started. How about some hair on you? Tally blinked through the menus quickly, picking a style at random. When the wall screen changed, Shay fell over on the floor in a fit of giggles. The high hairdo towered over her thin face like a dunce cap. The white blonde hair, utterly incongruous with her olive skin. Tally could hardly manage to speak through her own laughter. Okay, maybe not that. She flipped through more styles, settling on basic hair, dark and short. Let's get the face right first. She tweaked the eyebrows, making their arch more dramatic, and added roundness to the cheeks. Shay was still too skinny, even after the Morpho software had pulled her towards the average. Maybe a little bit lighter? Tally took the shade of the skin closer to baseline. Hey, Squint, Shay said. Whose face is this anyways? Just playing, Tally said. You want to take a shot? No, I want to go hoverboarding. Sure, great. But let's get this right. What do you mean, get it right, Tally? Maybe I think my face is already right. Yeah, it's great, Tally rolled her eyes. For an ugly. Shay scowled. Why can't you stand me? Do you need to get Do you need to get some picture into your head so you can imagine it instead of my face? Shay, come on, it's just for fun. Making ourselves feel ugly is not fun. We are ugly. This whole game is designed to make us hate ourselves. Tally groaned and flopped back on her bed, glaring up at the ceiling. Shay could be so weird sometimes. She always had a chip on her shoulder about the operation, like somebody was making her turn 16. Right, and things were so great back when everyone was ugly. Or did you miss that day at school? Yeah, I know, Shay recited. Everyone judged everyone else based on their appearance. People who were taller got better jobs. People even voted for some politicians just because they weren't quite as ugly as everyone else. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and people killed one another over stuff like having different skin color. Tally shook her head. No matter how many times they repeated it at school, she'd never really believed that one. So what if people look more alike now? It's the only way to make people equal. How about making them smarter? Tally laughed. Fat chance. Anyways, it's just to see what you and I will look like in only 2 months and 15 days. Can't we just wait until then? Tally closed her eyes, sighing. Sometimes. I don't think I can. Well, tough luck. She felt Shay's weight on the bed and a light punch on her arm. Hey, might as well make the best of it. Can we go hoverboarding now? Please? Tally opened her eyes and saw that her friend was smiling. Okay, hoverboard. She sat up and glanced at the screen. Even without much work, Shay's face was already welcoming, vulnerable, healthy, pretty. Don't you think you're beautiful? Shay didn't look, just shrugged. That's not me. It's some committee's idea of me. Tally smiled and hugged her. It will be you, though, really soon. Chapter 6. Pretty boring. I think you're ready. Tally cruised to a stop, right foot down, left foot up, bend the knees. Ready for what? Shay drifted slowly past, letting the breeze tug her along. They were as high up and far out as hoverboards would go, just above the treetop level at the edge of town. It was amazing how quickly Tally had gotten used to being up high, with nothing but a board and bracelets between her and a long fall. The view from up here was fantastic. Behind them the spires of New Prettytown rose from the center of town, and around them was the green belt, a swatch of forest that separated the middle and late pretties from the youngsters. Older generations of pretties lived out in the suburbs, hidden by the hills in rows of big houses separated by strips of private garden for their littlies to play in. Shay smiled. Ready for a night ride? Oh, look, I don't know if I want to cross the river again, Tally said, remembering her promise to Paris. She and Shay had shown each other a lot of tricks over the last 3 weeks, but they hadn't been back into New Pretty Town since the night they'd met. Until we get turned, of course. After the last time, the wardens are probably all. I wasn't talking about New Pretty Town, Shay interrupted. This place is boring anyways. We'd have to sneak around all night. Okay, you mean just bored around Uglyville? Shay shook her head, still coasting gradually away on the breeze. Tally shifted her weight on the board uncomfortably. Where else is there? Shay put her hands in her pockets and spread her arms, turning her dorm's team jacket into a sail. The breeze pulled her farther away from Tally. By reflex, Tally tipped her toes forward so that her board could keep up. Well, there's out there. Shay nodded to the open land before them. The suburbs? That's Dullsville. Not the burbs. Past them. Shay slid her feet in the opposite direction, to the very edge of the board. Her skirt caught the cool evening wind, which tugged her even faster away. She was drifting towards the outer edge of the green belt. Off limits. Tally planted her feet and dipped the board, and pulled up next to her friend. What do you mean, outside the city completely? Yeah. That's crazy. There's nothing out there. There's plenty out there. Real trees, hundreds of years old. Mountains and the ruins. Ever been there? Tally blinked. Of course. I don't mean on a school trip, Tally. You ever been there at night? Tally brought her board up to a sharp halt. The rusty ruins were the remains of an old city, a hulking reminder of back when there had been way too many people, and everyone had been incredibly stupid. And ugly. No way. Don't tell me you have. Shay nodded. Tally's mouth dropped open. That's impossible. You think you're the only one who knows good tricks? Well, maybe I believe you, Tally said. Shay had that look on her face, the one that Tally had learned to watch out for. But what if we get busted? Shay laughed. Tally, there's nothing out there, like you just said. Nothing and no one to bust us. Do hoverboards even work out there? Does anything? Special ones do, if you know how to trick them and where to ride. And getting past the burbs is easy. You take the river the whole way. Farther upstream, it's white water, too rough for skimmers. Tally's mouth dropped open again. You really have done this before. A gust of wind billowed in Shay's jacket, and she slid farther away, still smiling. Tally had to lean her board into motion again to stay within earshot. The treetop brushed her ankles as the ground below them started to rise. It'll be really fun, Shay called. Sounds too risky. Come on, I've been waiting to show you this since we met, since you told me you crashed at a pretty party and pulled a fire alarm. Tally swallowed, wishing she'd told the whole truth about that night, about how it had all sort of just happened. Shay seemed to think she was the world's biggest daredevil now. Well, I mean, the alarm thing was partly an accident, kind of. Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe we should wait. It's only a couple of months now. Oh, that's all right, Shay said. A couple of months and we'll be stuck inside the river. Pretty and boring. Tally snorted. I don't think it's exactly boring, Shay. Doing what you're supposed to do is always boring. I can't imagine anything worse than being required to have fun. I can, Tally said, never having any. Listen, Tally, these 2 months are our last chance to do anything really cool, to be ourselves. Once we turn, it's new pretty, middle pretty, late pretty. Shay dropped her arms and her board stopped drifting. Then dead pretty. Better than dead ugly, Tally said. Shay shrugged and opened her jacket into a sail again. They weren't far from the edge of the green belt now. Soon Shay would get a warning, and her board would tattle. Besides, Tally argued, just because we can get the operation doesn't mean we can't do stuff like this. But pretties never do, Tally. Never. Tally sighed, tipping her feet again to follow. Maybe that's just because they have better stuff than kid tricks. Maybe partying in town is better than hanging out in a bunch of old ruins. Shay's eyes flashed. Or maybe, when they do the operation, when they grind and stretch your bones to the right shape, peel off your face and rub all your skin away, and stick in plastic cheekbones so you look like everybody else, maybe, after going through all of that, you just aren't very interesting anymore. Tally flinched. She'd never heard the operation described that way. Even in bio class, when they went into the details, it didn't sound that bad. Come on, we won't even know it's happening. You just have pretty dreams the whole time. Yeah, sure. A voice came into Tally's head. Warning, restricted area. The wind was turning cold as the sun dropped. Come on, Shay, let's get back down. It's almost dinner. Shay smiled and shook her head and pulled off her interface ring. Now she wouldn't hear the warnings. Let's go tonight. You can ride almost as well as me now. Shay, do this with me. I'll show you a roller coaster. What's a second warning, restricted area? Callie stopped her board. If you keep going, Shay, you'll get busted, and we won't be doing anything tonight. Shay shrugged as the wind tugged her farther away. I just want to show you something that's my idea of fun, Tally, before we go all pretty and only get to have everybody else's idea of fun. Tally shook her head, wanting to say that Shay had already taught her how to hoverboard, the coolest thing she'd ever learned. In less than a month, she'd come to feel like they were best friends, almost like when she'd met Paris as a littlie, and they'd known instantly that they'd be together forever. Shay, please? Tally sighed. Okay. Shay dropped her arms and dipped her toes to bring the board to a halt. Really? Tonight? Sure, Rusty Ruins it is. Callie told herself to relax. It wasn't that big a deal, really. She broke rules all the time, and everyone went to the ruins once a year on a school trip. It couldn't be dangerous or anything. Shay zoomed back to the edge of the belt, swooping up beside Tally to put her arm around her. Wait until you see the river. You said it's got white water? Yeah. Which is what? Shay smiled. It's water, but much, much better. And that's the end of chapter 6. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.